obviously, you know, Aaron, I think you used the word freak out on McAfee's show the other day. Obviously, you guys didn't freak out, but how long does a loss linger? And then, I mean, you guys are professionals. You guys have learned for years and years and years how to put one game aside, win or lose.
Yeah, I mean, you watch the film on Monday and then you move on. You know, the schedule was a little bit different this week because Monday Night Football. So we were in Monday and we didn't necessarily meet all together. But so Tuesday we kind of met, put a little bow on it, and it's on to the next opponent.
Why do you think y'all have been as good as y'all been coming off losses the last couple seasons since Mankind?
I don't know. I think we're a good team. We've been a good team for the last few years. So good teams don't usually have poor performances back to back.
Aaron, do you have a preference whether you guys start with the ball or kick it if you win the toss?
Usually I like to defer just because I like the opportunity to double up at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. I feel like that's huge momentum swings that we've had over the years. But, if we start slowly, continue to start slowly, we might need to switch that possibly.
You're going to take the time to say hi to Jamal and pregame on Monday night?
I usually don't go out before the game, but I'm going to look for him for sure. Him and I still talk, and I have a lot of love and affection for Jamal. He's such a special guy. Adds so much to the locker room, so much energy to game day. One of those guys. There's a gaping hole in certain areas when you lose a guy like that. It's just you can't just fill it up with one person. His magnanimous personality is, and you guys probably miss him here at the podium too. He's got some great one-liners.
Aaron, you guys were so good last year on, I think, game opening drives. I think you scored on 13 of 16, if I'm right about that.
Mm-hmm.
Why were you so good at that last year?
Well, I think it's the way we put together the plan. I think we put some A-type plays that we like for the game in early, and we did last year and had a lot of success in those situations. That was fun. We got to get back to that.
You were telling Pat the other day about the back and forth with the locker. Did you ever have anything like that going with the Lions, like with Darius Slay? I know it got kind of rough there during Schwartz there.
I always felt like the back and forth with Brian was a couple competitors who respected each other a lot. The years against the Lions wasn't quite the same when they had Sue and Fairley and some of those boys. There wasn't a whole lot of affection shared by both sides. I remember especially the 2014 game. At the end of that game, the 2-minute kind of standoff that happened between both teams where nobody really went to the sideline. We had just got a first down to kind of ice the game. Those were some wars. You knew when you played Detroit during that era, it was going to be some tough physical games.
Aaron, it seems like almost every year you get asked about some team playing cover 2 or against you guys or man under or something like that. You have to figure out, is everybody going to play that against you? Do you have to run out of it? Is it the same thing? I mean, do you have to just prove that you can run the ball against that type of defense?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why people play that defense, is to force you to commit to the run and stay with it. Based on down and distance, we weren't able to do that in week 1, but I think that's the kind of the cycle of the league. As I've seen a number of different cycles over the years. I was talking with a reporter for a story, a few weeks ago about that. Just seeing what Tony Dungy and Lovey were doing with the Tampa 2, that kind of morphed into the Seattle defense and the San Fran doing it, and then this is the Rams stuff. Is kind of this same type of thing with more 2 high combo coverages and making you kind of go the distance, taking away the big plays and keeping things in front of them.
How do you view the importance of divisional games?
Yeah, I mean, we've been really good the last 2 years. I think we're 11-1 in the division the last 2 years. Big part of the reason we've won the division and had a top 2 seed in the playoffs. So they're the most important 6 games of the year, I think.
Aaron, back to the two-shell stuff. When circumstances make it difficult, time of possession like it was in the one-ounce game, the score, how do you find ways to still try to attack that through the air?
Well, there's a lot of ways. I think it's when you have plays that can work against one high or two high and options on those plays, then you don't have to pick a perfect play every single time. So leaning more on those things, and I think it's just being patient with the run and continuing to run the ball. I think it's hard and frustrating at times for everybody when, it's 15 play drives on both sides. You kind of like getting the ball a couple times, 3-4 times a quarter. That's how you can get into a flow offensively, even if you're not, converting every drive into points. At least you're kind of on and off the field, not sitting down forever on the sidelines, standing up, pacing, all the different things that kind of get your body kind of still in the moment. But I think we just got to keep staying patient with the run.
Hey, Aaron, on Monday night, they're going to be honoring Ted with, obviously the unveiling of the facade and everything like that. Just curious, when you think back to your time with him, professionally, personally, just what you remember most when you think back to Ted Thompson?
Well, I've said this, I always have a lot of love and appreciation for Ted because I was his first draft pick. That was always a special bond between us. There's something special about that feeling. You just kind of know that the GM has got you and wants you to be here and wants you to be successful. Always appreciated that. I think two moments in particular stand out. One is really the first time you ever called me. It was in 2007. I was in Portland visiting some friends, and that was when there were the rumors about 2007, I think it was Randy Moss. Was that 2007? And he called me personally and with his accent and reassured me that wasn't going to happen. That was just a rumor. And I remember it was one of the slower conversations. You guys know Ted. I mean, Ted was very deliberate talking. And I put on speaker so my friend who was in the car could just hear Ted talking. But it was a cool moment to get that phone call from him. And probably the last time I saw him in the cafeteria. There were a couple times he was in, and you knew he wasn't doing great. And it definitely tugged on the heartstrings to see him like that because Ted was always, the guy moving around and always around and always active and always loving going on the road and the scout at heart. And to see him a little bit as a shell of himself was tough. But I went over and gave him a big hug, told him I loved him, and that was a cool moment. Didn't think that was going to be the last time I saw him, but ultimately was.
Aaron, when you look at the Lions secondary, especially now that Jeff Okudah is out for the season, what do you see?
A couple long last names. I do have some familiarity with some of those guys. Played against them last year. I think the scheme is one that can help them. They do play similar coverages to the Saints, with Glenn having been over there, Coach Glenn. But I think they're improving guys. I thought they did a nice job last year of getting better, being kind of thrust into the situation. And last year they just played a bunch of man to kind of see what they had. And those guys battled and were aggressive. And it's a new system, but I think their play speed is really fast. You got to be smart about throwing certain balls to those guys. I don't really have not a lot of tape on 26, obviously, but anytime you got young guys, you're gonna test them.
Sorry, Aaron. I know it's only one game film. Do you see any Dom influences on the defense?
Dom? I might have to look a little closer to see if I can see any specific Dom Capers-isms, but and I hope I get to see Dom. I love Dom.
At the take-in, when you said good kick and you-know-where, did you feel at practice, a lot of these guys, was there an extra sense of, juice and energy out there today?
No, I mean, look, I'm not going to make it bigger than it was, and I'll let you guys in the outside world do that. But, look, we've won a lot of games around here. We've lost a few, but you move on. It doesn't matter if you play incredible and put up 50 or you get blown out. you move on to the next opponent. There shouldn't be some big drastic change and alteration in the way that we do things, the way we practice, the way we prepare. If it's good enough to get you to this point, then it's good enough from this point forward. So I haven't changed any of the stuff that I've been doing. Obviously, we got to play better. But if we're starting to freak out after 1 week, we're in big trouble.
That said, Aaron, after your last few losses, I mean, the last couple of years, your numbers after a loss are absurdly good. Is there anything you can point to there on your end? Is it just a team thing? Is there anything to that at all?
I'd say percentages, Bill. I've been pretty damn good for a while. So you have a game like that, and usually bounce back to average things out.
Aaron, you always think about what you say. Nothing you say is just by chance. So when you walked onto the podium in Jacksonville and approached it like, hey, this is just one game, what you said here, this is no reason to freak out. Is that a message as much to the inside of the building, the locker room, as it is to the fans, or does it not even need to be said to those guys back there?
You're damn right. Yeah, I mean, every time I'm up here, it's a message to all of them. To them, to Tom. Tom freaks out as much as anybody. To the fans. When I was on show with Jason, that was spur of the moment, but I was hoping my teammates would hear and the fans would hear that we need to relax. When I said in the locker room that I believe we can run the table, it wasn't a predetermined, it was in the moment, but in the moment it was something that I'd thought about before as I looked at the future schedule, and it was queued up perfectly to say what I thought was something that could inspire the guys. Now, I wasn't trying to be inspiring, especially inspiring after the loss, in Jacksonville. I was trying to put the loss in the context where it deserves to be put, and that is, it's not acceptable, but it's just one game, and we're not going to be held prisoner mentally by that poor performance. And like I said, we're not going to change a ton of things. I don't think there needs to be wholesale preparation changes, schematic changes. We had a clunker, and we got to play better, and I expect that we will on both sides of the ball.
Aaron, we talked last week about your headspace and your leadership style. And again, this is from outside the building, but people complain about your leadership style from the outside when you're getting after guys, right? You yell at guys too much. Then last week, from the shots that Fox showed, which is not on you all the time, it just seems that way, you were a little more even-keeled. I didn't see you getting after guys quite as much. Are your kind of zenness and your leadership style, are you still kind of figuring out what's best with this team, or has nothing changed at all? Where are you kind of at there?
No, I think it's just in the moment. I mean, it's sometimes some things need to be said, and other times not. I'm not trying to show up anybody ever. There's moments where the competitive fire comes out and needs to, and there's moments when nothing needs to be said or a private conversation. So it's a feel. I mean, true leadership is authentic in nature, and it's a feel on when to use your voice to say what's necessary. There were moments where I said things to certain guys, but there wasn't a lot to be said. I didn't want to be demonstrative or anything. I think it's authentic to who you are, and also understanding what guys need in those specific times.
Speaking of getting after guys, we asked you a couple weeks ago about getting after Josh. What did you think of his first game? From the outside, it looked like he was pretty good.
Yeah, he graded out pretty good, I believe. I thought the snaps were good. Some of the things that I talked to him about or was praying about was not any fastballs in the snaps. He did a really nice job at that. He handled all the different cadences that we used really well. I thought in the pass protection he was very solid. So I thought it was a good start for him. Like I said after the game, I didn't think it was our inability to move the ball was due to us not pass blocking well. I thought the pass blocking was good. And I was proud of how those guys played in the passing game. We didn't, I didn't obviously play very well, and we didn't get open a bunch, but pass blocking was really solid.
So you spent a lot of time, the last 4 or 5 years, in the offseason working on yourself and deal with pressure and traveling abroad. And then I remember when Charles was here, because it reminded me when he came to visit, we appreciated him as a vocal leader. But we heard that you did become a vocal leader last year too. So, I mean, where do you take that from here now?
Well, I mean, it's time and a place. Like, it's when it's necessary to say things that I feel like can inspire or change the energetic direction of the team, then I need to say something. Sometimes, as I've said, there is a lot of wisdom in silence. There's also, some great ways of leading that empower people. And sometimes empowerment is taking a step aside and allowing someone else who has a message for that particular moment to say that message. But I think it all comes down to being very present in those moments and trying to understand what your team needs in certain situations, what the coaching staff needs, because I'm one of the older guys. I'm close in age to some of those guys than some of our youngest players. So just having a good feel for what the staff needs from me, words-wise, energy-wise, and then what the team does as well.
Do you see Hack as a head coach down the line?
Hack?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, look, he's been around the game forever. He's got an incredible passion. He has a great football mind. He's an incredible teacher. I definitely see him as head coach material.
Can I ask another leadership question?
Yeah, sure.
Can
I ask what your shirt says?
It's a punctuation shirt.
Oh, okay, yeah.
My question's not nearly as good as the shirt.
That's true.
This is a more of a veteran team. Does your leadership change at all when you have most of your starters are back? You got a lot of more veteran guys than you're probably used to having. Do you have to change with that, or is it just being a leader, regardless of who, the age and experience and all that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bill. I think every team is so different. You really have to not have assumptions about what the team needs. And the biggest thing is to understand where guys are at personally, because when you realize where they're at self-motivationally and energetically and professionally, you're able to kind of speak into their lives a little more. I think, just speaking offensively, we are such a veteran group. There's such a high level of accountability. I think there's less words that need to be said, if that makes sense. I've often struggled with leadership that needs to fill every void with some sort of saying or words or slogan. I just don't feel like that's necessary in so many situations. A lot of times it's a nod, it's a feeling, it's a fist bump. It's something that kind of lets the guy know next to you, hey, I'm with you and I'm counting on you to do your job the way you're counting on me to do mine. So when the accountability goes up, I think the words actually and the necessity for words overall goes down. Now there's still certain situations where important things need to be said, but kind of what I said, you're actually referencing something that I said a little bit earlier about sometimes stepping aside and allowing or empowering, depending on how you look at it, a guy to step in and kind of begin to take steps towards leadership. With a guy like Mercedes, it's a no-brainer. It's easy. But when you start looking at some of these other guys, whether it's Devontae or Marquez or Aaron Jones or Bobby or Allen, I think that's when you can grow as a team, is when you empower those guys. Look for those specific subtle moments where those guys can grow in those areas. And that's, I think, what Mercedes and I, as two of the leaders on offense, really look for.
Aaron, you specifically, though, said offense. I would say Charles as a leader transcended it. What's your role defensively? I mean, got Za'Darius making a pendant that says the captain C on it. It appears, I don't know, I haven't talked to him, but it appears he's not real happy with not being viewed as a leader, or at least not voted that way. What role can you have with those guys and maybe empowering other leaders on defense? How does that cross over?
That's a good question. I think first and foremost, to understand the voting process, it's voted on by the team, players. So the players speak and through their votes. the active roster and practice squad, and the guys who received the most votes were the guys who were, in their eyes, the leaders of the football team. And just like Matt said afterwards, and like we all have said, and I've said indirectly in this time now, just because you don't have a C on your chest doesn't mean you're not a leader. There's opportunities for a bunch of guys who don't have a C on their chest to lead. But as I've talked about here many times, there's an important aspect of being a role player to this team's success over the last couple of years. Some roles are bigger than others. Some roles involve a lot of leadership. Some involve leading by example and that being good enough. I think on that side, we just got to continue to give those guys opportunities to use their voice to lead when necessary. You have a lot of guys who lead by example. Charles led by example and led with his voice too. When he spoke, everybody listened. And, I think when a guy finds that fortitude and courage to step into that role, it's a beautiful thing. And, as all the things that I've accomplished in my career, the opportunity to transition from somebody who likes to inspire with words on game day often to somebody who's speaking in front of the team every single week, that's something I'm really, really proud of. But it takes the right time and that intestinal fortitude, that courage and pride to do that. And I hope we can have more guys on defense who can continue to step into that and figure out how and when to do that, because it's only going to make us a better team.
The first
Two
drive
more
on
in here.
offense, you guys went for it on 4th and 1. You and LaFleur, you looked at each other, looked like nothing even needed to be said. You knew what was going to happen, and you're going to go for it. Is that aggressive style that you've already talked about that's going to happen, and you think that'll continue going forward?
I was surprised personally by it, but when he said let's go for it, I wasn't going to argue with him at all. I was excited about it. Now we, made kind of something happen there because the play we drew up and the execution wasn't quite perfect, but Marquez, was able to adjust his route and make a catch there. But Tom and his never-ending stats told me that it was the highest 4th downs that were attempted in an opening week in a long time, in any week. Single week in the modern era, 52 times, 25 conversions. Thank you, Tom.
One more in here. Sarah, you can go out on Zoom.
Okay, we just have 2 people.
Hey, Aaron, I was wondering, what adaptations have you had to make for age in the last couple seasons on the field? And what do you anticipate, what adaptations might you have to make going forward, do you think?
When you say adaptations, Pete, what exactly are you talking about? Talking about physical adaptations or mental adaptations?
Yeah, a little both, but a little less mobility, for instance.
I think that comes with age for sure. But just for you, Pete, I'm going to break off a couple runs this week if I can. I'll be thinking about you. I wish I could dap you up in the locker room next week after I bust off a career long. But no, I think you saw last year, Pete. When I can play on time in the pocket, obviously I can be really accurate and we can get humming on offense, and that's the goal. Ran around for a long time around here. Tom tells me I think I'm top 10 on the all-time Packers rushing list. Is that right, Tom? Yeah, thank you, Tom. But I'm not quite the runner I used to be. I'd like to stay in the pocket as much as possible. But adaptation-wise, I don't know. It just comes down to footwork. When I'm throwing the ball on time and in rhythm, we're pretty effective. So I just got to find that rhythm and timing this week that we didn't have last week.
And last one, Lance Allen.
Aaron, different question, but you love golf. Are you going to get a chance next week to sneak away to the Ryder Cup? And after your performance in the match, did Shambo put in the call for you to be the ringer in the celebrity match?
No, I didn't. I don't think Bryson did that. He's got some other things going on, I think, lately. But I don't think so. What are we at next week? Yeah, we're at San Fran. it'll be a busy week, so I don't think I'll be able to sneak out there. I'm not sure if we're leaving Friday or Saturday yet, but definitely we'll be pulling hard for the home team on our home turf. Love the Ryder Cup, and it's fun having the local Wisconsinite leading the squad, and Steve Stricker.